knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
No, I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025, there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
Welcome to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth A. Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. We have a huge 3 hours of radio coming up for you tonight, including heavyweights Derek Chisora and Delicious Orie are on the show. We're joined by Jack Turner following his devastating victory up in Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. And we'll discuss what's next for Anthony Joshua. All that and much, much more here on Fight Night on talkSPORT. Good evening, Mr. Spencer Oliver.
Good
Omen, how are
evening,
you?
sir. Very well. Pleased to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's get stuck into it. Heavyweights first. A huge week for Derek Chisora, who also joins us in about 15 minutes' time. His ears will be glued to the show right now, so let's not be careful about what we say to him, because we want Derek at his most fiery. War Chisora in 15 minutes. The IBF will order Derek Chisora's mandatory challenge for Daniel Dubois' World Championship on April the 22nd. Not long. Yeah. Discuss, please, sir. Does he deserve, after that win against Otto Wallin, Joe Joyce, the way he's sold things, does he deserve to fight for the world title? You know I don't want him to, because I don't want him to try and go after cutting my hair off again, remember? So, does he deserve to fight for a world title? And secondly, against Daniel Dubois, Spencer Oliver.
Well, listen, Derek's put the work in over the years. He's on a good run of form right now. He's coming off the back of a few victories. He's worked his way up there. The IBF have mandated him for the shot. So why does he not deserve it? He deserves it as much as anyone else. Will it happen? I'm not sure that it will. I think that the politics will get in the way with other mandatories being ordered, certain fights happening, certain fights not happening, titles getting dropped. So, look, the landscape of heavyweight boxing at the moment is wide open. There's lots of fights being talked about. Lots of fights commercially sell better than other fights. So mandates won't actually happen. It's an interesting time.
Well, let's go over the division at the moment then. We've got Alexander Usyk at the top. He might be facing Daniel Dubois next. He might be facing Joseph Parker next. He might be facing Ajit Kabayel next. Those three are in position, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So Daniel Dubois is the favourite at the moment. We know that Frank Warren is pushing for that one. He's been public about it. Daniel Dubois has come to the surface this week and kind of put a message out there, and quite an anodyne, very simple, very transparent message saying, if you want to see the doctor's letter from my illness in Riyadh on February the 19th, you can see it. I think, if you agree with me, I think Andy Lee and Joseph Parker do deserve to see that note.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Listen, why not? I mean, look, I'm close with Don Charles, so I understand what goes on in that gym there. I understand the history with Daniel Dubois and the way that he gets sick before fights, where his glands do swell up. It normally happens 3 or 4 weeks before fights.
It's interesting, that, isn't it?
Well, it's through the pressure. I used to
Stress.
get it. Stress, but it comes out in people's bodies in different ways. I used to get it all the time before every one of my fights, but I used to get poison in my toe, and it always come back, and we used to have to have it lanced off and injected and numbed, because that's, certain fighters, come out in different ways. Some
Am I
fighters
grinning or not?
You are grinning. Yeah.
I totally believe you.
Oh no, it's the truth.
It's the total truth.
It's absolutely. And Daniel Dubois, his glands swell up every time. He has a history of it, and it so happens. We was out there, weren't we? We saw him. He looked brilliant when he done the open workouts on the Wednesday. Thursday morning, he come down very sick. And the doctors advised him not to box by the Thursday afternoon, early evening.
Pause it there. Let's listen to Daniel Dubois. He says he's back and ready to go.
I want to fight them all. I want to fight, I'll say, Parker. I want to fight Parker, definitely. And hopefully Turkey might hear this and, make it happen in England, make it happen in Wembley or something. I definitely want to fight Parker. That's unfinished business for me. And, yeah, and if not Parker, Usyk or AJ, these are the guys that I want next.
With Joseph Parker, it seems like obviously the belt's going to get fragmented, and possibly the WBO gets pushed on, and Joseph Parker could become a champion in the way that obviously you became a champion through the IBF. Would it make it a bigger fight if Joe had a world title, or would you just want to go in there with Joseph Parker regardless of the situation?
Yeah, I see it as unfinished business a bit. For me, that's unfinished business.
Alexander Usyk, that's probably still one of the biggest fights yourself on Alexander. But can I ask you, with your team who are talking in the background, where are we? Or is it talks with both fighters right now, with Joseph and with Alexander?
Well, all I know is that I'm going to be fighting in July. Well, that's what I've heard. I've heard that I'll be out in July, and there's a date in July for me. So, which one of them they're gonna get for me? I don't know. I don't really care. I just want to put someone to sleep again and get back out there and show the people that, I am the man. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for everyone.
Well, our thanks there to Une, a friend of the show, friend of ours, who's always at the fights. He was speaking to Pod Lounge there. Right, let's go over this. He said he'd fight Joseph Parker. Yeah. That's a fantastic fight, by the way. Rewind to February the 22nd, when we were all excited about it. I think the most likely is Dubois is going to get Alexander Usyk. What happens to Joseph Parker in the meantime, in your view? Because I've spoken to his management team. You've suggested, for me, and you take it away, Parker against Anthony Joshua. I think that sells.
Absolutely. It's a big fight. It's a rematch. It's a better fight than the first time they boxed. That is for sure. Was that back in 2019, I believe?
Parker the favourite now, or not marginal favourite now?
Parker may start slight favourite. On recent form, you have to go with Joseph Parker. And I believe that if that fight does happen with Daniel Dubois versus Alexander Usyk, the WBO title then becomes vacated. Joseph Parker's a WBO interim champion, and so we could see he could get elevated to WBO champion. Anthony Joshua, that's his route back into the top. He's sitting there waiting to see what's happening with Tyson Fury right now, but obviously got a keen eye on Joseph Parker as well. That's what I'm saying about the landscape of heavyweight boxing right now. We've been talking off air, so many fights that could be made, that are being talked about being made, and we know that in the current state of boxing right now, these fights can be made because of the influence of Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season.
Look at the fights that are made. We've got Efe Ajegba and Martin Bakoli, the number 8 and number 10 maybe in the division. That's happening in May on the undercard of Canelo and William Skull in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We've got what we hear is going to happen, Portman Road in June, Fabio Wardley against a big-name American. We're going to talk about Anthony Joshua in a section further on in the show and dig into Anthony Joshua in a little bit. We need an opponent for him. But of the others, Zhang, Kabayel, they've just fought. It's a weird algorithm. Tyson Fury, I'm told by Spencer Brown, his manager, is staying in abeyance for now. He's keeping fit. He's enjoying the leg day with Paris on a Friday, all that kind of fun. And he's got a busy schedule coming up with Wayne Rooney being the UNICEF England football team manager, co-manager with Wayne Rooney, apparently going on an Antipodean speaking tour. What about, finally, before we speak to him, the IBF told this to Sky Sports this week. Derek Chisora is the mandatory challenger for Daniel Dubois, but the mandatory bout is due to be ordered on April the 22nd. There is not enough time for an eliminator since Dubois' mandatory is due on June the 21st. These are the boxing politics, the lack of a unified system with all the governing bodies, the sanctioning bodies, which are self-imposed, which mucks up the rhythm.
Yep.
Spencer, Oliver, of the heavyweight division and of every division.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And I think that, you'll find yourself in this position where if certain fights are made, at the moment we've got the undisputed heavyweight title. Those titles can fragment, and they can sort of like come apart. We're talking about the WBO there. Joseph Parker's the interim champion. Will the WBO strip Alexander Usyk of that title if he doesn't defend in time? And then you just highlighted it there with the IBF as well. So we could find ourselves in a situation again, Gareth, where these titles do come apart again, and you get certain fighters fighting for it. And Derek Chisora is that mandatory position. He will get his shot.
The weird thing is, if we get Dubois against Parker, which would unify 2 of the belts now, against Alexander Usyk in the next fight, then we got all 4 belts together again, undisputed, if he waits. So it's almost like Alexander Usyk should wait, and they should fight each other as they would. In my view, that's what should happen. And maybe Derek sneaks in there in the meantime. Can we say that before we get him on
Listen,
air?
he's there or thereabouts for sure, and he's waiting for his shot. He wants his shot. He wants Daniel Dubois, and the kid's earned it. You can't say that he hasn't earned it.
And before we get him on air, I don't want you agreeing with him on the bet tonight. It's up to me to make the decision about getting my hair shorn, and it ain't happening.
You know I'm going to agree with him.
You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Up next, we have Derek Chisora. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Gareth, Davies, Spencer, Oliver alongside me. Joining us now, heading into his 50th fight in his 42nd year, the one and only. He's at the Usher concert in London. War Chisora. Good evening, Derek. How are you?
I'm all right, guys. Spencer,
Derek,
and your friend, if you ever keep me waiting to come on air, we're going to have problems, especially with you, Gareth, when I see you. Because I'm at Usher concert. I'm having a good time. And I have to wait for an hour for you guys to put me on live. That's not cool.
You can blame our producer, Ed, for that. It's his fault. He's kept you waiting. We've been waiting to speak to you. Listen, it's been a great week for you, Derek. People are pushing you forward for a world title now. Are you going to go out there and demand that you have this world title?
Listen, the problem we're facing right now is that Frank looks after me and he looks after Daniel. So I don't know if it's going to be fair or not. Yeah.
He needs an independent promoter. He needs an independent promoter to get him the world title shot.
Well, there's a turn up for the books.
Don't listen. Listen. Seen it all night.
We were saying something earlier in here. If Parker and Dubois...
I tell you what.
Yeah, go on.
No. 1 second. Let me do this. Listen, I already said to Ben, I finished my career with Frank. Ben is trying to get something for either Fabio or somebody, because his channel is dying down. He's about to get fired in the next couple of months if he don't produce a blockbuster. So he's trying to save his job with my name.
Could that be you and Alexander Usyk then? Because you've called him out as well.
No, listen, I don't want to call him. I'm not calling anybody out. I want my world title shot with Daniel at Wembley. I know I can sell out Wembley. I don't know what. Listen, I know Daniel pulled out the fight with Joseph Parker. He didn't come out and apologize, but you know what? He's learning. He's a good fighter. He's just learning his craft right now. So, people give him a slack. He'll defend his title with me, because I know Joseph Parker wants to fight for the WBO with Alexander Usyk. So, listen, I want that fight.
Listen, Derek, the heavyweight landscape right now, there's so many big fights out there. You've earned your right, by the way, to be there. You're on a run of some good form. You're number 2 with the IBF, now being made mandatory challenger. If Dubois decides, or Alexander Usyk decides to go in against, let's say, Daniel Dubois, where does that leave yourself as in the next big name? Where are you looking to go if that fight doesn't materialise?
Listen, if that fight happens, I'll just wait for my opportunity. Because either way, listen, we want good fights. We want good business. And right now, good business is me and Daniel. Yeah? And then Joseph Parker and Alexander Usyk. But Usyk and Daniel Dubois will not sell out Tottenham or Wembley. I know that for a fact. Do you believe that will sell out?
No, not necessarily. So what you're saying is your next fight, if you have to be patient for it, will be a world title challenge.
Especially now they made me say yes, 100%. So I went for it.
Well, listen, are we going to let you get back to Usher? Do you need to get back to Usher and Mr. Ben Shalom, who's stolen his way into the box that you're in and trying to sign you up?
No, first of all, let me say this before I come off air. Happy birthday to you, Spencer, for 50 years old.
Thank you,
You're my
mate.
brother. I love you so much. I've known you since I was a young man. And happy birthday to you, man. Enjoy yourself now, my friend. You only got 25 summers before you take the long net, my friend. So enjoy yourself.
Thank you very much, brother. And listen, I will pop round for that. I think you said you had a Rolex there or something like that you had for me, but I haven't had a chance to get round.
Your hair, because I want us both to have long hair and dreadlocks soon, yeah?
Well, listen, my hair will be in dreadlocks soon.
Hey, listen, Gareth's scared that you're going to cut his hair off when you win that world title.
On that, is he right? Maybe he is. Maybe it's a clever move, Spencer. I will wait it out until a world title opportunity comes. Smart move.
Genius move. That's Derek Chisora. He's grafted away. He's got himself into mandatory position. He's coming up to his 50th fight. He's made no secret about it. His career is at the very end. He wants to go out on top. He wants the big fight. Why would you risk it? He's going to sit it out. He's earned that right. He's had the good wins. He's coming off the Joe Joyce victory, and he's just looking at it now and going, give me my shot.
If Anthony Joshua had beaten Joe Joyce and Otto Wallin, we'd be saying
the same thing.
World title shot next.
100%. I mean, look, we're talking about Anthony Joshua, who's coming off the loss to Daniel Dubois, getting a world title next if the landscape falls the way that it does and that WBO title goes to Joseph Parker and Joshua gets that opportunity. What I'm saying is the talk is actually there for Joshua getting a world title shot off the back of a loss. These conversations are happening. So why does Derek Chisora not deserve a shot?
And we're going to talk about Anthony Joshua in a section on the top of the hour. But with Derek, with Ben Shalom there, did that surprise you, by the way? That's a little bit of a strange. And Derek saying he's going to get sacked unless he puts on box office events. Is there schmoozing going on there, or are they just Usher fans?
There's a bit of schmoozing going on there, mate. Trust me on that one.
No promoter does nothing for a reason.
Look, do you know what? That truly surprised me. I did not expect that. To see little Ben Shalom popping up in the background there, that was brilliant. Didn't know he was an Usher fan, to be fair.
He's a Derek Chisora fan.
There you go.
He's a Derek.
There you go.
But thank you, Derek, for making the time tonight. He has surprised us, hasn't he, Derek? Why? How has he managed, rather like Joe Frazier did and other people did in that those 70s? We're going to talk about George Foreman and Colin Hart later on the show. Love and blessings to them as they passed over to greater glory on the other side this week. He is a throwback. He is a cult figure, but as a heavyweight, he's a throwback to a different generation, in my view.
He really is. You know, like you say, he's in his 42nd year. I think he had his debut back in 2007. I've known him since he was 16 years of age, since he first walked into the amateur boxing club.
What was he like then? What was your first memory of him?
First memory of Derek Chisora was me thinking he's never going to do anything in boxing. Wow. He had no natural ability at all, but he was just tough. And as you got to know him and you watched his work ethic, he was actually quite lazy as an amateur. You saw him; he was a fat kid. And he was a fat kid when he won the ABAs, you know. And you look.
He was a fat kid till he fought David Hay.
Yeah, but he's got himself now in good shape because he started taking it seriously at this late stage of his career, proper seriously. And you know, he's not just relying on the brute strength that he has, but he's got himself in great shape as well. And he's become a fan favourite. You know, I think he's become a little bit of a national treasure in boxing terms.
He's been very smart. He learnt from David Hay after losing to him. He learnt from Tyson Fury after losing to him 3 times. He's learnt the whole time. Ed, our producer, just pointed out an interesting thing that in my ear, that Don Charles as well was instrumental in him early in his career, well, up until about 5 years ago, frankly.
Yeah.
If he was ever to fight Anthony Joshua, I don't know if he ever will, how instrumental would Don Charles be? Or with Daniel Dubois even?
I think that he would be hugely instrumental. Whether that happens or not is a different subject.
Because he knows Derek's weaknesses?
Well, he just knows Derek inside out. He knows him as a human being, as a person. He knows what makes him tick. He knows what's the buttons to press.
Does he have any weaknesses anymore?
Yeah, I think every fighter has a weakness.
But what are Derek Chisora's weaknesses now? Because I don't see them. Because I don't think he gives a snooting.
Well, no, he actually doesn't, and that is one of his main assets and his main strengths. That he just goes in there, and where he may have had that nervous energy before, now he goes in there and like you say, he doesn't give a flying.
Pardon? A flying flute.
Yeah, the flying flute. Exactly, yeah. So,
all right, hold it there then. As we're getting to the expletives, let's go to the break and just relax a little bit. Pat Brown next.
After nearly 134 years, Everton are finally saying goodbye to Goodison Park. A new home stadium awaits them in Bramley Moor Dock, a site on the River Mersey. And at the beginning of the 2025-26 season, the Toffees will make the move permanently. It's a hugely emotional move, especially since the stadium, affectionately dubbed the Grand Old Lady, has hosted more top-flight games than any other stadium in England. But there are practical issues which mean the stadium is not fit for the future. Its capacity is just under 40,000 and there's a huge...
Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth at Davies, and him, Spencer, the Omen, Oliver. Next, we're joined by this man.
And Grandoni is forced to back off, and the referee will be looking for some kind of response from the Argentine. As Brown now fires in, and this is looking decisive. The crowd now really rising to Pat Brown's performance, and he finishes it in style.
55 seconds of round number 4, declaring a winner by TKO, Patrick the Bomber Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Patrick Brown. You were in a bit of a slobber knocker last night on your pro debut, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. He was a game opponent. He come to fight. And yeah, it was good for the crowd to watch.
Is this a sign of things to come, that you're only going to be in these brutal wars and it's what you love to do? You love to just throw down?
Definitely, yeah, that's my style. You know, Sam was saying to me, he comes to fight, he's always pressing the pace, and he did that from the get-go, so I'm obviously similar. So yeah, it was a match made in heaven. And
I want to point out that it was your debut, and it was at Cruiserweight, and you had a massive announcement for your pro signing with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Was there pressure on you to go out there and deliver an exciting fare last night?
100%, yeah. Loads of pressure, but the way I look at it is, you know, if you want to make it to the top of this game, there's always going to be eyes on you. There's going to be pressure, and pressure's a privilege. You've got to just take it with both hands.
Yeah, you put in a solid performance there, Patrick. I must say, mate, for a guy having his debut and with the pressure that you had on his shoulders coming off the Paris Olympics and all the rest of it, and the big build-up that you was getting as well, sometimes it's not easy to have a good debut the way that you did, but you showed great maturity. Shot selection was brilliant. Body shots, and that right uppercut, by the way, sensational. And, yeah, you bring a lot of fans as well, mate. I mean, what a performance.
Yeah, thank you. I knew, obviously, this guy he was coming to win. You know, he's from Argentina. He was very proud to be from there, and this was his biggest shot, and he wanted to make an upset. So I just knew to take my time. I wanted a mature start, and I wanted to show people that, you know, I'm not one of them people that's just going to go in there and start throwing haymakers. I wanted to show that I can, you know, up the level each round, and that's what I did.
How do you deal with the pressure of, you know, like the pressure that's on your shoulders going in there? Because there was a lot of it on you. There's big talk of you being, you know, the next boxing star, if you like. They was talking about that even when you lost in the Paris Olympics in that fight. You go, your style suited to the professional ranks. So there's a lot of talk, and the guys were talking it up, Eddie Hearn especially, saying this is going to be the next star.
Definitely. I think, obviously, I sell a lot of tickets. I've got a good fan base, so that goes hand in hand, doesn't it? You know, especially when you're a fighter as well and you're exciting. And yeah, like I said before, it's if I can't handle it now, I'm not going to handle it at the top. So I rather know if I'm cut out for it, and I clearly am after last night.
So obviously, you're 25. You've had your first pro fight. We know that you've got a great amateur pedigree, and the fact that you went to the Olympics, it's no mean feat to even go, even though you didn't have the greatest of luck there in Paris. Obviously, Spencer and Ed were there doing the boxing tournament. How do you build your career? Do you want to be moving quickly? Do you want to be in a world title by fight 12? How do you see your career progressing, Pat?
I'll go down whatever route. I believe, you know, boxing's a business. Like Eddie Hearn, he's a promoter. He does that job. Jamie's my coach, and he'll know what fights to take for me. So if he says fight this guy, I'll fight him. I'll fight whoever. But if he says you're not ready for that next level, then I'll be like, all right, fair enough. You know, everyone's got their own job role, and if they stick to it, I'll get to where I need to get to, whether that's my 12th fight or my 30th fight. As long as I get there eventually, I'm not bothered.
Pat, I've got an interesting stat for you, mate. You've both come in the talkSPORT studio. You've both hit the punch ball. You're number one and number two on the punch ball. That's you and Alois Jr., another undefeated young cruiserweight prospect. What a fight that's going to be down. You know, you need other dance partners. What a fight that would be.
Yeah, definitely. Two big punches. To be honest with you, I actually mentioned, I said to Sam, who's that guy at the top there? And he mentioned it, and I said, I'm gonna have to smack this proper out because I might have him beat me. And yeah, I ended up giving it a proper good whack. But yeah, it's an exciting fight for the future.
It is for the future as well. And that's your invite to get back in here and come in the studio, by the way, to go one better than him, back on the Brazilinator, as it's called, to get to the top of the tree again. But you too, what you do have as cruiserweights is you hit with heavyweight power as well. I'm fascinated with everyone listening tonight. We know that you're a big puncher. We know you're extremely exciting. We know that you're in the prime of your life. How did you get into boxing, Patrick? What made you want to be a boxer when you were younger?
So my dad used to box back in the day. He runs a boxing gym, and yeah, I was a hyperactive kid. I always wanted to make my dad proud, and yeah, he took me to the boxing gym, and that's where I learned all my morals and respect, and I learned how to, you know, keep fit and train hard and just learn the hard way. Yeah, so 7 years of age I was when I walked through the doors, and I stayed at Sale West till I was 20 years of age, and then I moved on then to Moss Side.
Are you a very similar kind of story to Tom Aspinall up that way in MMA and in the UFC then, that dad has guided you, and that even though you're a rough, tough guy, which you clearly are, you never ever leaned to the other side of the tracks? Or were you ever tempted by being a miscreant at any point in your life?
Yeah, my dad, you know, he kept me on the straight and narrow, and I'm the carbon copy of him. And the nickname Bomber used to come from him, and he only had a handful of fights, but he used to be a bit of a pain outside, you know, in the boozers and stuff, and he got his nickname there. So my dad's already lived, you know, that sort of life, and he's always kept me on the straight and narrow, and he could see me, you know, like he was back in the day. And if it weren't for me dad, I wouldn't be here now for sure. So yeah, definitely similar to Tom Aspinall, and he's a lovely, humble man, and I've got big respect for him.
Pat, you're 25 years of age now. The Cruiserweight division, especially in Britain right now, it's on fire. It's
in the world,
absolutely. Jai Opetaia being probably the king of that division. But at 25 years of age, where do you see yourself in 2 years with the names that are around?
Well, yeah, Opetaia, obviously, he's coming to the back end now, isn't he? He's in the mega fights, and he is some athlete, he's some fighter, he's had a great pedigree. And, I kind of I don't really look that far ahead, to be honest with you. I always just do one step at a time, and I think that's why I can handle the pressure well, because when you start looking at the bigger picture too much, it can crumble you. And I'm just going to take one step at a time, see where I'm at, and don't get me wrong, them fights excite me, definitely, but I'm a way off, and I'm not going to be one of them guys where I'm going to say, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. You know, I've only had my first fight yesterday, and it was good and stuff, but you can't get complacent. You got to keep your eyes on the prize. Absolutely right.
Well, there are some brilliant guys for you to aim at: the Billum Smiths, the Aloys, the Opetaias, the Gilberto Ramirez, the Golden Southpaw. They are only a couple of years away from you, I'm sure, because people don't seem to rush anymore. One of the big things you did enjoy and will have learned from, and we are delighted that it's happening in Los Angeles in 2028, is that the Olympics is back with boxing again. It must delight you because you've been there. How important is it for boxing to have an Olympic tournament, Pat?
It's massive. You know, the professional scene of boxing, look at all the greats that have come from the Olympics, the history. I think it's the most historic event of the Olympics, and it's also I think it was one of the first that was in the Olympics as well. You know, the history goes way back, and you can't, boxing gives so much discipline, and it's not just fighting. And I know it's all political reasons, but you know, these kids, they have dreams, and it gets them through the amateur circuit. If you don't have the Olympics, amateur boxing goes out the window, and then where are you going to get the talent coming through the pro ranks? Because everyone needs to start somewhere. I know obviously you get a few fighters that just come straight into the pro ranks and they're good, but you know, amateur boxing, it's grassroots level, it's where the bread and butter is, and the Olympics, you know, that's where it's at.
Are you interested at all in this new formation? I know that you're with Eddie Hearn at the moment, but could you be persuaded to join that movement in the United States with TKO and Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh? I'm not trying to get you to spit on Eddie Hearn here in any way, shape or form, but when you will have seen that, are you drawn by that to see what they may create over there as well with that divisional system and shake-up boxing?
It obviously seems very good from the outside, but I've not, obviously, nothing's been sort of planned, nothing's been proven yet, so I can't really give an answer just now, because I don't know how they're going to do it. In terms of having just one champion, it's exciting, don't get me wrong, but if someone said to me, you can fight for a world title against Chris Billum Smith or against someone else, or they say, do you want to have a fight in that league, but it's not for the title, it'll just get you up the ranks, I'm obviously going to go for the world title, because it just makes sense. And you know, these belts, they have loads of history in the sport. You know, WBC, it's every professional boxer's dream to have that belt, and it will be quite strange to just have one belt that has zero history, but there's always something, you know, things have to come around and they have to start, don't they?
Yeah, Pat, you had a sensational performance there, making your debut. What's the roadmap for you this year, your opening year? How often do you want to be boxing? When are we going to see you back in the ring?
Eddie mentioned June in Birmingham, so that's looking like the next fight. I want to stay as active as possible. You know, an active fighter is a dangerous fighter, and he knows I sell tickets. He knows that I'm entertaining from last night, so he'll want to get me out as well. He won't want me just sat there on the sidelines.
Patrick Brown, thank you very much for taking some time out on your Saturday evening. It's great to speak to you. We will be following your journey and your progress with great interest. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. I'll see you both soon.
Yeah, well done, mate.
Cheers. Thanks very much. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Gareth Davies, and he is Spencer the Omen. Oliver, welcome back to the show. You got something to tell me? We've got Delicious Orie, the heavyweight, coming on in a minute. You got something to say?
Yeah, we have. I was just interested, actually. We're talking about the Cruiserweight division and how good it's got just recently. It's always been that sort of catch in between sort of the light heavyweight and the heavyweights. That Cruiserweights never really caught light. We are absolutely flying now with these Cruiserweights. You know, when you talk about it, where do you see like the likes of sort of Pat Brown and Alois Jr. and even Lucas Rohrig with George Groves chains? When you go, you're talking about names like Billum Smith, Isaac Chamberlain, Chev Clark, Vidal Riley. I mean, we had Okoli and Riakporhe now moving up to heavyweight. But where do you see Pat Brown fitting in with those lot? Do you think it's going to be a quicker progress than shorter?
Well, I think, you know, there's 5 or 6 fights' time, he'd be looking at Eve Nagabu, Chev Clark, all these guys.
Do you think it's as quick as that?
I do. I think, because I think he's one of those guys that's going to come in and actually fight and deliver. I think he's got... I know Jamie Moore is a very perspicacious, very meticulous coach, but this is a guy with a particular style, with great power, as we know. I mean, the idea of he and Alois the Animal in the ring together is just frightening. You know, it's almost like a bare-knuckle fight.
I'll just
but you didn't even mention, really, even though we did with Pat himself, you add Jaya Pataya, Gilberto Ramirez, Noel Michelian to that mix as well. There's so many great fighters in what was generally a division dominated either by a David Haye or an Evander Holyfield.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely. The playing field there is quite incredible. Let me rephrase that question for you. Alois Jr., Pat Brown, Lucas Rohrig, who will emerge the best out of them three?
Ooh. Pat Brown, Rohrig and Alois.
Yeah. It's a great question, isn't it?
I almost don't want to see Alois and Pat in a ring together until it's at least like a British, Commonwealth and European fight.
And Rohrig as well, mate. That kid's going to the top as well.
And George Groves thinks he's really is going to be
special.
A world beater, yeah.
I mean, he's sparring with like the likes of Opataya, and Opataya, who I was sitting next to at the Ring Magazine Awards out in Saudi Arabia, said to me,
That kid was sitting next to me, actually.
No, he was actually sitting next to me. That kid couldn't fight.
Let's get to Delicious. Let's get to Delicious anyway. Very good evening to you, Mr. Delicious Orie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Very good.
You've got a fight coming up next weekend. Thank you for spending time with us tonight on Frank Warren's Heavyweight Show, which is on talkSPORT, by the way, live from Manchester. How are you in the final week of camp?
I'm good. I can't complain. My first ever pro camp almost done. It's different. I've learned so much with Grant Smith. I'm continuing to learn every day whenever I'm in that gym. It's a fantastic gym, fantastic setup. So I'm really, really excited about next week.
Delicious. So talk to us about, you know, the difference in professional boxing to amateur boxing. I mean, you was top of the amateur tree. You boxed out in the Paris Olympics. You've now turned pro. Have you noticed a big change?
Yes, I would say it's at the end of the day, boxing's boxing, so it's similar, but there is slight adjustments to my pacing because the rounds are slightly different in terms. What I mean by that is you when you go into training, you aim to do longer rounds. So whatever it is, whether it's skipping or on a bag or pads, the duration of the training is longer, you know, whereas on the amateurs it's sort of shorter bursts but more frequent. So it's just being able to my body having to adapt over the last few weeks, which it has done. And yeah, the style is just different. So my sparring, I've had to adjust it quite a bit because at the end of the day, last 8 years of my life I've been amateur boxing. You know, I'm an amateur boxer at the end of the day. So this is definitely a new chapter. And I can really feel the changes that Grant Smith's been sort of putting into me and putting in the work over the last few weeks.
You're his first heavyweight, I think, as well, aren't you? Which is a brilliant move for both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a brilliant move for me. I've known Grant Smith for a good few years now, actually, being on the GB setup. So. Coming down there, just having chats and just doing bits of work, and I just thought, I always knew that I'll be able to have the opportunity to work with him. and he had me on, so I was very happy with that.
I remember you coming down Finchley ABC a few years ago, actually. Now, it seems like yesterday, really, coming down there sparring with the likes of Anthony Joshua, seeing you training down there. And there was always big talk of you turning pro, and even AJ saying how well you was going to do as a pro. That seems to have come around so fast.
Man, it really has. It really has gone. Do you know what? When I was as an amateur, all I was focusing was on that Olympic Games. So for me, I didn't really see past that until now. So now it feels like, right, I'm in this new chapter, completely new world. I see it a lot on TV, but now it's time to live it, which is going to be weird. It's going to be weird having a weigh-in and a face-off and all that stuff, but I'm looking forward to it.
I've got to ask you about the Olympics. Obviously, a horrible time for you. I mean, remember I watched it 3 times and wrote a detailed account for the Telegraph of it. You lost outrageously to David Chaloyan, the military man at the Paris Olympics. Obviously not great memories, but how pleased are you that Olympic boxing is back and it's going to be in Los Angeles in 2028? We asked Pat Brown about it. How important, Delicious, is it that it is in the Olympics?
Very, very important, because it's not necessarily the fact that, we get to watch it in the Olympics is great, but it's what it does to the funding, to grassroots. That's massive. That goes a long way. Not everyone is destined to be an Olympic boxer, but what it does is take people and take young children out of the streets. We're hearing news all the time with knife crime, all this, horrible stuff. These kids they've got discipline and they've got a goal. And honestly, some of these kids don't have a family, don't have anyone to look up to. They go into a boxing gym, they've got a coach, they've got someone to look up to, and someone that they can potentially be in the future. So that doesn't mean they'll be Olympic athletes, but it means that they might have dodged either a sentence or death. And that's, in my opinion...
That's a big dodge. That's a big dodge.
That's a lot more important than being an Olympic athlete, in my opinion.
Do you know what, Delicious? You went out there as one of the favourites to win the gold medal, actually.
Commonwealth gold medalist.
And European Games as well.
Yeah.
But I was out there. I watched the fight, and I scored it for you, and I scored it for you quite clearly. It was... How bad was that, Lewin? I know that was your dream, and like I say, I saw you sparring AJ down at Finchley ABC, and that was what you was hanging around for, that cycle to come round. How disappointing is that?
Oh, it hurt me, man. It hurt me to my core. It was horrible. But I've learned a lot about myself, not just as a boxer, as an athlete, as a human being. And because to the lead up of the games, all I was thinking about was that gold medal, or at least a medal. Nothing else mattered to me. It was like my birthdays or whatever it is. It didn't matter. All these celebrations that, family, it doesn't matter. All that matters is the Olympics. And when it was taken away from me, or, I didn't achieve what I wanted to go out and achieve, it was like, wow, is this what life is? I'll never get this opportunity again.
No.
It's quite,
yeah. Because Chaloyan got it on a 3-2 split on the judges, didn't he? I had you winning 3 rounds, all 3 rounds, frankly. I couldn't see how they could see it any other way. Look, let's put that in the past for now. Let's talk about where you're going from here. You're up against Milos Veletic next Saturday night. What do you know about him, and how quickly do you want to progress through the ranks, Delicious?
I know absolutely nothing about my opponent. And also, it's completely entirely up to my team. I've got a fantastic team. I've got fantastic management, got a fantastic coach, and I fully trust, put my whole trust into them. Whatever it is they want me to do, I'll go out and do it.
You're talking about Frank Warren and Grant Smith, obviously.
My promotional team, my management team, and my coach. Those 3 people are the people I listen to. So, and they'll guide me, because these guys have got phenomenal experience. Looking like some Queensbury. That's the reason I've gone with them, because of their experience and the way they can build their fighters. So, I know that I'm in a very good place.
Delicious, I know that you sparred a lot of top heavyweights out there, world champions, etc. How much confidence have you taken from sparring those guys that you can make it to the top?
And tell us who they are, please.
Well, you mean professionals? Or
professionals. The professionals that you've mixed with, because I know that you've actually mixed with the professionals, as in sparring-wise. I've seen you with Anthony Joshua, etc. They're at the top of the game.
Talk us through it.
How much confidence have you taken from that, and who have you sparred?
To be honest, as a professional, I haven't sparred many heavyweights, and that's purely because of the fact that at the time as an amateur boxer, all my aim is to box the best amateurs at the time. So,
all right, rephrase it, AJ.
Yeah, I'd say AJ is probably the top professional fighter boxer that I've boxed.
How much confidence did you take from that spar?
Yeah, it was all right, I guess. For me, a spar is a spar. It's like I can have a bad spar, I can have a good spar. It doesn't matter. It's a spar. So I don't really get confidence from sparring, to be honest with you, because I always look at the negatives. So that's the way I look at it. I can have the best spar in the world. I could completely chin someone, but I didn't put my hand up. So,
well, rather than the sparring, we look forward to seeing you do the real thing against Miletic next weekend. That's live on talkSPORT, and we'll be talking to you up there all next week. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Delicious Orie. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
cheers,
mate.
Absolute pleasure. Delicious Orie there, who fights next weekend, live on talkSPORT from Manchester on Frank Warren's heavyweight card. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT.
Everyone knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025, there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
Tonight, I've got to say. So we hopefully I know I'm not allowed them anymore. I know. There's no bopping in the chair anymore for you to laugh at me. No laughing, please. Look, Anthony Joshua. The big news for Anthony Joshua in the last week, Spencer Oliver, let's deal with this first of all, because it's maybe not as inexplicable as it would seem, or implausible as it would seem to begin with. Jake Paul calls out Anthony Joshua. I said to people months ago when we were in Dallas, Texas, and what a time that was. I know people didn't agree with the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, but 70,000 people and 105 million watched it on Netflix, and we had an amazing time there, even though the fight didn't deliver in lots of ways, because Mike's nearly 60. It was a marketing genius move by Jake Paul. We know he's that. I did say to you at the time, and you've agreed with me, that he was going to call out Canelo. He nearly got there until Turki Al-Sheikh intervened and signed Canelo on a 4-fight deal. But Jake Paul is at it again. He's called out Anthony Joshua. We need to discuss this because it is more plausible than people might believe, in my view.
No, I don't think it is. I think that calling out Anthony Joshua, I get him calling out Mike Tyson, a guy that's nearly 60 years of age and sort of, you know, way past his best, and it was more of a publicity stunt, if you like, marketing genius. But calling out Anthony Joshua, I mean, come on, like Anthony Joshua, like he's looking at getting this roadmap back to the world heavyweight title. You don't even need to entertain Jake Paul.
Canelo. Why did Canelo accept?
Well, I thought it was the same joke. I think it was the same joke. I mean, look, Canelo would accept him, and Anthony Joshua would accept him because it is easy money. Like,
it is
one
easy
thing
money.
that Jake Paul does is draws huge numbers.
So why wouldn't they take it then?
Well, it's not saying that they wouldn't take it. I said I don't want to see it.
Carl Froch wants it with one arm behind his back. Paul Smith this week said he'd fight him and get back in shape again.
There's not a fighter that wouldn't fight him because there's huge money on the table. That's the fact. But do we want to see it? No.
No, I'm not asking. Could we see it?
I don't think we could. I'm going to rephrase that. I do think we could see it, but later rather than sooner. I think that Anthony Joshua has to go on his journey first. He has to try and regain that world heavyweight title, or if he doesn't, he's got to try to do it, and then he can entertain Jake Paul.
There's money there for him. There's 50 million probably, but it
absolutely.
Massively diminishes where he stands.
He can't do it right now.
No,
he can't do it right now.
With you.
If he does it now, he's going to lose all credibility.
I do agree with you on that, but he will be scratching his head going, I wonder.
Let him scratch it, mate, because if he does it now, he loses all credibility. He's a two-time world heavyweight champion, looking to gain it for the third time. Don't let Jake Paul get in the way of that. Follow the dream first. Once it's over, entertain Jake Paul. All
right, well, let's park that to one side then. We talked about the heavyweights at the top of the show. We've talked about the position of Alexander Usyk at the moment. Derek Chisora joined us. We know that he's getting in position for the IBF. We know that Ajit Kabayel sitting there, Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker. You've posited something that I agree with, and I spoke to Joseph Parker's manager, Spencer Brown, before the show tonight, and hopefully he's going to come on at some point in the next week as well. They would like Parker against Joshua if they can't get Parker versus Usyk. You posited that about a week ago.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that fight works?
I just think that it's a fight that now is more interesting than the first time they fought way back in, I think it was 2019, wasn't it? I think that AJ then started an overwhelming favourite. The fight didn't live up to any expectations. Parker never really went for it. AJ was a little bit standoffish as well. They're both in different stages of their careers. Parker's blossomed in this later stage of his career, now 32 years of age. People forget that. He was a very young man when he first boxed Anthony Joshua. He's grown in stature.
Commercially it works or not?
Commercially it works because Joseph Parker is coming off back-to-back wins against Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang, and his credibility has grown. A lot of people like Parker now talk about him, he could beat any heavyweight out there right now on his current form. So Anthony Joshua going in might start the underdog, which seems crazy when you think about how the first fight went. But I think commercially it's a great fight.
Right,
people would pay to watch it.
Right, I disagree with you because I don't think Anthony Joshua deserves to fight for a world title right now. That's just my view. Who I'd like to see him in, I don't know what you think of this, is Deontay Wilder. I think that fight would sell. I think it's a fight we needed for the generation. Deontay Wilder's got an easy fight coming up. He'll let the trigger go again. He'll learn how to pull the trigger, which he hasn't been able to do for two fights against Joseph Parker and Zhilei Zhang, in which he looked like a shell of himself, particularly in the Zhang fight.
Yeah.
You and I were in pity for him that night, standing there in Riyadh. What about Joshua against Wilder? I really do like that fight, and I think it still sells.
I love that fight.
Okay, good.
I love that fight. I'm going to totally agree with you. I think that commercially, the fight sells. I think that they're two huge names. Joshua's coming off that knockout defeat against Daniel Dubois. Wilder's looked terrible in his last couple of fights, absolutely shot to bits. And it's a chance for it's a big fight commercially, and like I say, it's a fight that I would like to see.
It rounds part of the generation. Well, trainer Paul Smith Jr. And former boxer, of course, joined you and Simon Jordan, the Cape Crusader for boxing, on this week's Talk Boxing show on talkSPORT on the YouTube channel. He suggested that AJ needs to make big changes if he's to return to the top. Let's have a listen.
What I did see and what I did hear on fight night when he lost to Dubois was bad advice from the corner. Now, Ben Davison is a good lad, he's a good trainer.
Yeah.
He takes the credit, and he's come out recently and he's took the criticism, and he's admitted that the corner work was really bad and maybe the preparation, I'm not sure what happens in the gym, but to tell Anthony Joshua to go for it when Dubois is still very much live in the fight, where 3 or 4 rounds, it's a different opponent, it's a different job in front of you, it's a different task. But you tend to roll the dice when he's already been hurt, he's already been dropped,
He's just recovering, he's just getting himself back into it a little bit.
Just bluff your way through the fight for the next 2 or 3 rounds, let Dubois tire himself out, because he's fighting on nerves ultimately, Dubois, in my opinion, and then you've got a better chance. I think he needs to change the team around him. I think he needs to get a good trainer around.
Well, I think it's absolute nonsense. I think he had to throw the dice. Well, not nonsense, but I don't agree. I think he had to throw the dice. How many times have he been down at that point? 4. He was just clinging on for dear life. He almost got to Dubois in that 5th round. We were there. It was live action. He was in trouble. And, you know, at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua, as I said at the time, got hammered and pilloried for it by certain people in here, not you, but he didn't read the script in the first round. He got caught and he fluffed his lines.
Yeah.
And he was recovering in the... he was recovering, he was getting through the rounds, but he was getting battered from pillar to post. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, well, there's 2 sides to this for me. That I agree with some of it and I don't agree with other parts of it. One, I think it was a terrible decision from Ben Davison saying roll the dice, because Joshua was just recovering and just getting himself back into it. You say roll the dice to a fighter in round 11 when you're going down and you're down and you go, it's time now, roll the dice.
Down 4 times.
Yeah, but he was getting back in it. That was early on in the fight. He was getting back into it. He was just getting into it. He was just starting to turn it around. Well, I totally... that's
turn it around, maybe a little.
He was just starting to turn it around. He went way too soon. He should have given it another round or 2 before they made that decision to do that. At least a round or 2 before done that.
He didn't have any rhythm in the fight. He didn't. Daniel Dubois was all over him like a bad rash.
He'd been down, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
But then he was just starting to get into it and he tagged him a little bit. He should never have rolled the dice at that stage.
Wise after the event. I think this is all wisdom after the event.
Exactly. I just say that was the terrible decision. And now the second part of what I'm going to say now is, should he change his trainer? No. Why should he change his trainer? Because they've had one bad result. Let's remember one thing about Ben Davison. He pulled AJ back. AJ works a lot on the psychological side, the mental side. He done a great job with AJ. He pulled him back. When you go back to Jermaine Franklin and look at that terrible performance when he started training him there, and then the Otto Walling one, you saw the improvements. He was growing in confidence. Ben Davison actually done a good job with him. I think he made a terrible decision by telling him to roll the dice, but that doesn't mean he should be changing trainer. I think that they work well together.
In 6 years, he's gone from Rob McCracken to Robert Garcia and Angel Fernandez to Derek James to Ben Davison. To change now would be ludicrous in my view. And also, knowing Ben like I do, you know Ben as well, and knowing AJ like I do, the relationship they have is fantastic.
Absolutely. Listen, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be changing trainer because I like Ben, because I do like Ben, but that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because it's factual. He shouldn't be changing trainer because they made one stupid decision, as in to roll the dice, and like you say, you thought that was the right time. I thought it was the wrong time. That doesn't mean that you should not be... I think he's done a good job with AJ, and so I think that they should be sticking there, and let's see how it goes. Look, heavyweight boxing, you get caught, you make a decision, it goes wrong. I think Ben's actually openly said, maybe we made the wrong decision, but at least if you've not got such an ego that you can accept criticism like that, then it's all good.
Look, he lost to Andy Ruiz in the avenged defeat. He's lost twice to Alexander Usyk. So has Tyson Fury in this era. He lost to Daniel Dubois, who's probably the biggest puncher in the division right now, outside maybe Martin Bakole or well, there's the 3 of them, aren't there? I don't think there's too much wrong with him. He's obviously healing his wounds. He's healing himself mentally. I think he's probably got a couple of fights left. One of them is Tyson Fury, and the other one for me is Deontay Wilder, mate.
AJ has 2 fights left. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Wilder and Tyson Fury.
Twilight of his career. Fury's got to happen. I want to see AJ versus Tyson Fury. I'd like to see that actually next. But I'm with you. It's either AJ Parker, AJ Wilder, AJ Fury, but I don't think it's all 3 of them.
I don't think he should move, but you know, of the other trainers, Dominic Ingle, Grant Smith, Freddie Roach, Joe Gallagher, Rob McCracken again. Who do you think he could go to?
Don Charles.
Why Don?
because they've got history together, train together, work well together. Don's great on the psychology. He's done a great job with Daniel Dubois, actually. By the way, he's been, Don's openly said it's not the physicalities I'm working on here with Daniel Dubois. It's the psychological side, the mental side, making him believe in himself, installing that confidence. He needs to do that, and he understands AJ. He knows how he ticks. He knows what buttons to press. He's known AJ since he was a kid. I've seen him actually working together, and for me, sometimes
AJ still does pop into the Finchley gym at times.
Absolutely, and for me, I go, you're out there searching, you go over to America and you're looking for Derek James, and then you're training elsewhere and going around all these trainers. The answer might be right on your doorstep, mate. It might be right there, as in Don Charles.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Are you listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT? Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen, Oliver. Next, we're joined by El Terrier, Jack Turner.
Defeated, and now the WBA International Super Flyweight Champion, Jack El Terrier Turner.
You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I've got to say this, Spencer. Big up Gareth from Team Michael Watson. Haroon, his carer, has just sent me a message. Listening in. Happy birthday, Spencer, from Thursday, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speak Monday. He's walking a mile, Michael's Mile, 22 years after he did the marathon on April the 16th. Join us in Westminster. It's at 1 p.m. I'll be there. talkSPORT will be there. Any chance of a shout-out to Cham? He sent me a picture of Michael with Derek Williams, with Jim McDonnell, with, you can see the picture as well, Colin McMillan's, I think Colin McMillan's there as well. I think Derek, who else is there? I'm trying to see the picture really close. They're all celebrating tonight. Michael Watson, 60 years old, Spencer Oliver, 50 years old. Let's celebrate that.
Absolutely. Listen, I will certainly be there with my good friend Michael Watson. Big inspiration for me, by the way. My journey, my recovery, we've stayed really close friends. Haroon is a great guy as well. It's going to be a fantastic event. Make sure you get there.
April 16th, 1 o'clock in Westminster. Look on our social media for where we will begin the walk. Now, he delighted us. I said El Terrier because he really was. Jack Turner delighted us a couple of weeks ago when we were live in Liverpool on talkSPORT at Frank Warren show up there. Jack joins us, 23, a new father. Good evening, Jack. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You were brilliant a few weeks ago. You lit up that arena in Liverpool. Look at that wry grin. You are an absolute animal when you step into the ring. Where on earth, my friend, does that come from?
I'm not too sure, myself. I think I'm born with it.
End to his life, but your performance was very similar to that, like brutal, mate. Like absolutely no respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Got no respect when I'm fighting, but after the fight, I've got a lot of respect to anyone who gets in there with me or anyone who gets in the ring. But when I'm in there, I just want to hurt you and take your head off, and that's what I do.
11-0 with 10 knockouts now after that victory over Ryan Farag. A little birdie tells me you've snuck in at number 15 now in the WBA. Don't be modest. Does that feel good?
Yeah, it feels good, but I want to be number one, and that's my goal, and I won't stop until I get there, and I believe I will be number one, step by step. I'm still only young, still got a lot of time, but I believe I beat anyone.
That WBC belt, currently held by Bam Bam Jesse Rodriguez, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez is the number one challenger. Do you look at those guys and think, do you know what? In a couple of years or a year and a half, I am going to be pushing for the biggest names in the sport? Because we as I spoke to you afterwards, and as the guys said on the show when we were there, we feel that you have the ingredients to be a superstar and take on these greatest names.
Yeah, 100%. I want to be in them type of fights in the future. As I said, I'm still only young, but I'll fight anyone, and I believe I'll beat anyone.
How long are you going to stay down at super flyweight, Jack? So we was looking at you there as well, and I go, this kid's got to outgrow this very soon. We were talking about you being multi-weight champion. We was very excited about your performance, but how long do you see yourself before you grow into the bigger weight divisions, and how far do you think you could go?
Well, I've been making Superfly quite easy, to be honest. But I believe I'm going to stay at Superfly for another 2 years, hopefully. But just see how it goes, really. But I believe eventually I will be a bantam, and then I will be a super bantam. But only time will tell. But I do really believe I'll be a multi-weight world champion.
For those listening, making £115 to fight at a junior bantamweight, it's called now, obviously super flyweight is what we call it, we're old-fashioned. Do you have to live, for those listening tonight who'll be fascinated by your life, do you have to live the life of a jockey and be very careful what you eat all the time and run long distances and watch your weight the entire time?
Well, when I'm in camp, yeah, you can't make no mistakes. When I'm in camp, I'm on my diet. I'm very strict. What I get told to eat by my nutritionist, that's what I eat. I don't eat nothing else. Tells me to drink this much water or have this. That's what I'll have. Outside the camp, when I have a little break in there, I will have a little cheat meal.
What's the cheat meal? What's the cheat meal then?
Oh, the cheat meal. Well, I do like my food. My cheat meal will most probably be, I like an Italian, but I like pizza, pasta. I also love chocolate.
Yeah, listen, Jack, while you're talking about being out of camp and the food that you love out of camp, let's talk a little bit about your life as well out of camp. Someone tells me that you're a fisherman, and that's what you enjoy your fishing.
Yeah, I like to go fishing over weekend. Yeah, it's good to get out of the house, and I just like to relax and go fishing of a weekend. But I don't think I'll be able to go for a while now, because I've got a little boy now. Just had a little boy 4 days ago, so I've got to give him all my time. So no fishing for me for a while.
Can you not take your girlfriend or your wife, your fiancée, which I'm not sure which it is, can you not take them all fishing with you?
No, she doesn't like fishing.
Tell us about a day. So tell us about your typical day when you go fishing then. Do you set up? Do you have a tent? Do you go in the night sometimes? How does it work? And what are you after?
So basically I wake up early in the morning. Basically the night before I get all my stuff ready, what I need to take with me. I make like a little pack of lunch and that to take with me. And then my mate will come and pick me up, and then we'll pack the car and we'll go set up the tent, set up all our fishing stuff, and we'll just stay there for the night.
All right, what are you after? What the fish you're after, though? Because he's a fisherman as well, and he'll get into the detail with you in a minute. But what are you after, and where are you fishing? Is it a fishing lake? Is it canals? Where are you when you're doing it?
Normally when I do it, I fish on a fishery where you pay to get on. And normally what I want to catch is carp.
Yeah, so I don't think Gareth was actually believing me when I told you I was a fisherman. But what are you using for carp? Are you using the boilies? Are you using the sweet corn? Are you going with the bread?
How big is it? That's what I want to know. How big is that? Do you put your arms out like that and say, I've caught one this big?
My biggest one's like a 22-pounder.
Wow, that's big. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bit smaller than mine.
Yeah.
Oh Oh, Jack, happy fishing, happy success in your career. We absolutely delighted that you are part of our talkSPORT show, and you were the couple of weeks ago. We have seen a lot of boxers come through over the years, and we cannot wait to follow your journey. We've got to go to break now, but thank you so much for joining us tonight, and congrats on becoming a papa.
Thank you very much, and last but not least, I want to say a massive thank you to all my sponsors. Without them, it'll be impossible to do what I do.
Brilliant.
And I also want to say a massive thank you to me managers, Scott and John, and Cuban Boxing, and a massive thanks to Queensbury and me coaches for everything they do for me.
Indeed, it's Paul Stevenson, your coach, isn't it?
Sorry,
Joe McNally, your coach. Apologies. Paul had all the fighters on the card a couple of weeks ago. Of course, it was Joe. We spoke to you together. Apologies, Joe. Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Jack.
Thank you.
Well done, Jack. Well done, mate.
Jack Turner there. Apologies to Joe McNally, who I interviewed with Jack up in Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Up next, Harvey Horn joins us.
Dubbed the Grand Old Lady, has hosted more top-flight games than any other stadium in England. But there are practical issues which mean the stadium is not fit for the future. Its capacity is just under 40,000 and there's a huge season ticket waiting list. So the new one...
Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. Next, we're joined by a man that you can watch live on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel next Friday.
Friday, the 4th of April. Fight Zone on talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel will be coming to you from Stamford Bridge.
Get on a team and to come to another team's country and challenge them in a duel, I mean, that's old school fighting. That's what boxing is missing right now.
Rurik is looking to end it right here. Lands another left hand which puts him down.
The return here in the UK at Stamford Bridge is going to be absolutely fantastic.
This concept can be replicated time and time and time. I think it's a fantastic thing.
Your American style is very much based around looking for them big shots. But when you start missing them is when the problems start for you.
Americans were running the show.
Well, guess what?
To serve that purpose.
Guess what, Raheem? We're at the top of the tree now.
USA, you are definitely going to get smashed.
Well, fighting live on talkSPORT at Super Flyweight next Friday joins us handsome, horny Harvey Horn. He's got so many different nicknames. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, fellas.
Super Flyweight, not Bantamweight next Friday.
Super Flyweight next Friday.
So you're on a diet right now, yeah?
I am. I haven't eaten, in the last 12 hours.
So the first event we done was that in November time, wasn't it? October. So first event we done was in October. You boxed at Super Bantamweight out there. You got the job done. You won, but you was at Super Bantam. I know you boxed down at Fly and Super Fly before, but do you feel more comfortable at the lower weight than the Super Bantam? Because I thought you boxed brilliantly, by the way, out there. I thought the weight suited you, mate.
It was one of them things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I took the fight. I'd been inactive for a little bit, and I got the call. They said, "Do you fancy it at Super Bantamweight? We've got this fella. He's a promoter's. He's the promoter's favourite. He's 5-0. Do you fancy it at Super Bantamweight?" And I thought, you know what? I didn't see any footage on him. I thought, you know what? Let's have it. So in Texas as well. How many opportunities do you get like that? So I thought I'd jump on that. And like you say, I, without sounding big-headed, I thought I looked in good nick. I thought I looked well. I was in good shape. I was fresh. Like, don't get me wrong, I think... But if he was a little bit more experienced, I think we might have been in a little bit of... He might have used that weight against me a touch more. But where he was a little bit green, I was able to kind of use it against him, I think.
You're 12-1-0 with 2 wins via knockout is your record. But Harvey Horn, this is your life, first of all, for this section. We're going to get into UK versus USA in a minute. Let's... Obviously, it's Roy Jones and Spencer Oliver, and it's a brilliant concept, and I love it. Talk to us about, look at you. Handsome, erudite, sartorially dressed with the most beautiful woman I've seen in years. sitting alongside you in the studio, who's accompanied you tonight, who's grinning and doing your social media. Look at you in love. Look at that look in love. Tell us how you got into fighting.
So we go back. I mean, I'm 29 now. I got into boxing when I was about 6 or 7. So I went down to my dad took me down to the Repton Boxing Club. Walked in there, I remember smelling it, thinking, "Oh my God, what is going
sick.
on?" Yeah, I thought, "What is going on?" And we used to live in Bethnal Green, so my dad took me down there. We went in there. They said there's no room for us. Said there's no more room for any more kids because it was absolutely packed. And I think maybe my age put them off a little bit. And I'd love to know what trainer it was because obviously I know them all over the years. I boxed for Repton in the end. But I'd love to know who it was. I'm not too sure. I got a feeling it was young Bobby Beck, but I'm not 100% sure. So we walk in the gym, I get the smell of it. I'll be honest, I don't fancy it in there. They turn us away. And from there, my dad just kind of always had the fights on. He boxed as an amateur himself. Nothing crazy, but boxed as an amateur himself.
Who did he have the fights on? Nazim Hamid and all these guys?
Yeah, so all that sort of era. Nigel Benn, he loved Nigel Benn. So we used to watch those sort of old school tear-ups. And then the first actual memory I have when I went and watched Joe Calzaghe versus Jeff Lacey. So it was a little bit later on, but that was
Manchester,
the first. Yeah,
amazing night.
Yes.
One of my favourite nights ever. That was
fantastic.
an amazing night, wasn't it?
Well, I sat in the front room and I remember watching it, thinking, this Jeff Lacey, come out absolutely shredded. I thought this geezer's going to get Joe Calzaghe's going to get absolutely flatlined.
He was called the Mike Tyson of the super middleweight division, the new Mike Tyson at the time.
I think I read in Calzaghe's book he won the 6-pack of the year. Lacey or something. He looked absolutely immaculate.
He was brought over to beat Joe Calzaghe. He was actually brought over to beat Joe.
Joe had broken hands, was trying to back out. There was lots of noise around this guy. He was undefeated. He was going to smash Joe Calzaghe. And what did he do? He was like Nureyev on a ballet, wasn't he?
It was unbelievable. And that there for me was the first time I watched a fight and understood it. I understood what boxing was about. And then I say base my style. My style was obviously a little bit different than that, but sort of southpaw, left-handed, boxing, moving like a ballet, like a dance.
5-6 punch combinations.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I mean, the engine was unbelievable, wasn't it? But yeah, so I got into that. I started at my first club called Gator ABC, which was in Hainault. So we'd moved to Essex now by this point. Started boxing. I was doing all sorts of sports, karate, swimming. I'm one of 3 brothers, so we was always fighting. So my dad said, "You know what? Gym. We learned to fight.
In the street?
To channel it. Not
each
so
other?
much. Not so each other mainly.
Competitive.
Competitively. But more so, we was very competitive. We was in all sorts of sports, and I got to be a little bit careful here.
No, come on. No, don't be careful at all. This is your half an hour.
I'll tell you what, it is past 9 o'clock.
Harvey Horn.
Well, I mean, I was always on the small side. So my first fight was at 23 kilo. So on the very, very
was you
small
carded
size.
Then at 23?
I was carded. That was my first fight. Danny Edges, West Ham Boxing Club. I boxed him on a West Ham show, and I lost on a majority.
Is that like 3.5 stone or something?
It's a bag of screed.
I've got to say, mate, there must have only been about 3 of you in the country that weighing 23 kilos. That was like unheard of. I think the lightest that I think I'd heard of before that was 32 kilos. So you were some way off.
Pin weight.
I was 32 kilos when I started and I was tiny.
So 30 kilo was what I had to get up to for the schoolboys for the first year. Schoolboys. But yeah, so 23 kilo, Danny Edges, I'll never forget it because I stopped him years later. He beat me. In East Ham Working Men's Club. Beat me there, and I lost my first 3 fights. Lost my first 3. My dad said, "Look, if you don't fancy," I didn't lose them by a lot, but I got beat on all of them. My dad said, "Look, if you don't fancy this anymore, like, I'd rather you say we'll do something else," because we was always going to do some kind of sport, all 3 of us. My youngest brother was in Leyton Orient. Both of them was in Leyton Orient. The youngest one was breaking into Arsenal Football Club. So we was always going to do something.
Could you play as well or not?
Absolutely useless.
Oh, okay.
Useless. The only sport that I am no good at, which is a bit of a gutter really, because
it's soccer. It's football.
I know.
Cricket. Rugby?
Anything, even rugby. Even with my size, I am mustard. I'm just athletic. But football, as soon as it comes to touching the ball on my feet, I am pony. I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, so taking it back. So I lost my first 3 fights, had that serious conversation. I remember it. We was in Bedfordshire in some random changing room, and he sat me down after my third loss, and that was when people was smoking still. The last week, so I remember walking into the ring.
Oh yeah, everyone's smoking. Yeah,
it was a cloud of smoke above the lights.
Cigars.
I remember thinking, oh my God. But that was the last time I remember seeing the smoke above the rings. Got beat, sat down. Dad said, look, if you don't fancy this, let us know. It's fine. I had me nan, me granddad, everyone saying, pull him out. Like, he keeps getting in there, getting beat. And after that, I found my first win. About a month later, my dad bought me my first pair of boxing shorts. It's like black suede pair. Bought me my first pair, chucked them on, horny on the front, and that was the start. That was the start. I went about, ridiculous. I think I won 7 national titles on the spin. You know, like it just rolled from there. I did have a couple of losses sprinkled in there, but overall the amateur record stood at about just over 110. I lost 13 fights.
You had a great amateur career, to be fair. You was one of the good amateurs turning professional. Let's talk about that professional career now. You know, fast forward a few fights, everything's going really, really well, and then you have a unexpected defeat. Talk to us about that and how you come back from that. Yeah,
so unexpected. Yeah, I was, like you say, I was on a roll. I was at a time when I was in school, so I'd come out of the GB squad. Eyes on me as such. Even though I was at the lighter weights, I was doing well. I just managed to win my first title, and I'd dedicated myself to that fight. So that WBO, the first 10 rounder, dedicated myself to that fight, and then after that, the head went. And I can say it now, but at the time, I thought rolling around like I had two knobs.
But you say your head went. Explain it a little bit more detail.
So I thought I was a little bit better than what I was. Thought I was unbeatable. I ended up getting this fight against a French champion to defend it. So I signed with Wasserman. And it was the fight directly after. I boxed a fella called Majiha. He was a sub, so he was only on 2 weeks' notice. So the French fella pulled out. They pull this fella in and they say, right, he's a little bit heavier. You won't be able to defend your titles. He can't make that weight. What do you think? I had a look at him. He's got a 50-50 record, but 40-odd fights, 50-odd fights, and he's knocked a few of them out. Again, for me, I just looked at that and thought, easy. Thought, I'll have that, easy. Took the fight. Funnily enough, I was with Mark Tibbs at the time, and everyone will know Mark Tibbs is a fantastic trainer. A lot of knowledge there. And he said, do you want this fight? Are you sure? Because it's, like you say, you've got 2 weeks now. You don't know anything about him. He's tough. He's not your weight. Do you fancy it? I said, yeah, we'll be fine. And I'll be honest, I wasn't feeling 100%. I wasn't training 100%. I was, like I say, just cruising. I was sparring really well, but just wasn't putting in that little, it's like putting in that extra bit that you need. And then from then, my brother was actually making his debut on the show. And then when everyone's going to me, you sure you want to do this, sure you want to do this, and the doubts was creeping in, I was like, I can't really pull out because my brother's making his debut, and I was headlining. And I was like, if that falls through, there's a good chance that this ain't going to happen. So I'm going to stick the blame on you, Lou, if you're listening to this. So went ahead with it, boxed really good for 3 rounds, and all of a sudden, gas tank went from there all the way down. It was if I had no legs, and all of a sudden, 1 burst eardrum, 2nd burst eardrum, and then the hairline fractures on the rib. And then after that, it was lucky. I got up, but the ref waved it off, and I'll be honest, it was probably for the best, because watching it back, he knew he'd hurt me. He might have steamrolled me.
You haven't told us, we're going to have to go to break, but you haven't told us you won a bronze, I think it was, in the European Championship, or silver, sorry, it was in the European Championship, which is a massive thing as well, one of the toughest tournaments in the world. And you never became a stockbroker like your father and your uncle.
Yeah, so, the stockbroking. So I actually bumped into one of the old GB doctors yesterday, on Monday, at an event, and he said to me, you were supposed to go up the city after GB. He said you didn't want to turn pro, there's no money in that weight. I said, oh, well, to be honest, I kind of did, because I'm in the city now, and I've got a different line of work now. I train people. I've got a very interesting career, I must say, outside of boxing. So I kind of did go in the city, just I weren't broken. No.
More with Harvey on UK versus UFC, and also Spencer Oliver, of course, who is, what is he, the team captain? Cannot wait for this. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT.
and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025, there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
With me, Gareth A. Davis, and him, Spencer the Omen, Oliver. Still to come tonight. We're looking ahead to Joe Joyce versus Filip Hrgović. It's on talkSPORT Live next weekend, and there's only 1 month to go until Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Well, also to come, we'll speak to talkSPORT's combat correspondent George Glinsky as well and do our regular look and see him trapped in the attic at his in-laws as we have fun with him every time. And we will look at Frank and Eddie's new relationship. They were in earlier in talkSPORT this week, and I thought they were a little bit too pally. They're too pally for my liking at the moment. It's like a father and son team in many ways, but we are told a new 5 versus 5. Frank had the clean sweep last year in Saudi Arabia and all the puns and jokes that came afterwards. Eddie took it on the chin very well, I've got to say, but Matchroom were resoundingly beaten by Queensberry. This time, what will happen? We have a fantasy 5v5 for you. Look, both promoters, as I say, were in talkSPORT this week. Let me just ask you, before we get into that, Spencer, about our fantasy 5v5 from their camps, from their promotional camps. What do you believe their relationship has brought to British boxing? And we have to thank Turki Al-Sheikh, the Saudi minister, for bringing them together about a year ago.
I think it's been massive for British boxing. I think that, you know, we look at the last 2-3 years and how these promoters are now working with each other. As you say, they couldn't even bear being in the same room. I don't think they'd ever had a conversation before Riyadh season had sort of got involved.
They had never
even spoken, no. And the politics of sport have sort of been getting in the way for way too many years. You know, different broadcasters, different fighters with different promoters, so they're not fighting each other. Fights never being made. We're getting that now. They've actually sat down, they've talked, they actually realise we don't want each other, actually. We can do good business here. And they're putting on good fights, the best fighting the best. And we live in a world where the public deserve that. They have to pay good money to go and see these fights, and you want to see good fights. Do you remember the days, Gareth, when we used to go back to like us working at the York Hall or whatever, and you could go to a show and go, right, you knew exactly who was going to win, how they was going to win. It was sort of very one-sided, and you get the odd 50-50 fight. Now we're in these ones where They're very difficult to predict who's going to win, who's going to lose. You know, I mean, that whitewash that Frank Warren had, by the way. I don't think we expected that, but it sort of happened the way that it did.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the illogical matters around boxing is that we accept algorithms that are there that shouldn't be there, that it's brought about a change. It shouldn't have been the case. Things that we perhaps accepted that we shouldn't have, that there's one camp over here, there's one camp over there, only the twain meet when there was enough money to be made in a very big fight. Broadcasters weren't working together, and we're now used to guys from different algorithms, different teams, or rather, coming together, and all three broadcasters being at certain events as well. Now, of course, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn are both on DAZN. Oscar De La Hoya's on that platform. So let's see what happens. We're told that they're going to do 185 events this year, fight nights this year. Well, Warren and Hearn were in the studio together this week on The Breakfast Show. They teased the prospect of another Queensberry versus Matchroom 5v5. Have a look at this.
Just in terms of like the shows that you're looking to do, obviously Eddie, you lost the last 5v5.
Did I? can't remember.
How are you thinking to change it, and where's your wins going to come from? And that's what I think want to know.
Yeah, look, it was the 5v5 was just one of the most incredible concepts, and although we got absolutely stuffed in it, and I walk down the street and people still remind me of that night, and you know, it was an incredible night for the sport and for our fighters as well, and. You know, of course, that's what Frank said. We're competitors. We're you know, bizarrely now partners on the same platform with DAZN, and which is just incredible for British fight fans. But he announces his shows. I say to the boys, right, come on, we need better shows than Queensberry, which is great because we got that rivalry. And the 5v5. And myself and another layer of the relationship is mine with George Warren, you know, Frank's son, who is a brilliant operator. We get on so well. He's strictly, you know, all business as well. And yesterday we're building the 5v5 that will go to His Excellency with this week.
Well, Eddie Hearn having to eat a little bit of humble pie there. Just finally on this, before we pick our fancy 5v5, the key that Eddie said there as well, and as Frank said, is there's still competition between them, and they must never lose that.
It's called a healthy rivalry, and I think that is very good. It's very beneficial, not just for us, you know, as broadcasters, but for the people that are watching it, the fans, you know, and like to get these two top promoters globally, not just in this country, globally, putting their best fighters in against the best, not trying to protect the O's, not trying to protect the records, letting them go at an earlier stage is brilliant for British boxing. That's why, you know, that world boxing, that's why it's improved the way it has.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this TKO organisation with Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh, which I think will be principally in America to begin with, affects the way that Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom and Oscar De La Hoya and all these guys work together, because they may have to work together. Right, fantasy 5v5s. We're told there's an event coming up. As Eddie Hearn said there, kind of selling sand to the Arabs, as he always is, very successfully. And I mean that allegorically, of course. I've put my fancy 5 together, 5 fights. You've put yours together. We had to do it in secret. It was demanded we did it in secret, so we don't know who's chosen who. Let's go to the lightest weights that you've got first. Do you want to tell me who you've got in your lightest weights, first of all, and what weight it's at?
We'll start at lightweight, shall we? We're going to start at lightweight, and I'm going to go for a pound-for-pound star. Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah, that's Eddie's.
Yep, I'm going in against Anthony Kakachi, who was the world super featherweight champion, who's now relinquished, but a fight that I think that stylistically could be an absolute barnstormer.
No, Shakur Stevenson owns him.
Yeah, well,
with respect to Kakachi, Stevenson wins that hands down.
Yeah, well, Stevenson is a pound-for-pound star.
And he's a lightweight.
And Kakachi's just a very tough, coming off that good win against Cordina. We saw Josh Padley in against Shakur Stevenson, and I go, you know what? Looking at that style and the way that he pushed Stevenson, I like Kakachi. I think that's a great fight.
Okay, I tell you what about you mentioned Kakachi there, and you mentioned Joe Cordina and Padley, by the way. Spencer Brown, I was talking to earlier tonight, Tyson Fury's manager, Joseph Parker's manager. He said he would love to see Joe Cordina in with Josh Padley, not as potentially as part of this. I don't know if that works or not.
Start with your lightest weight, by the way.
But I'll start with my lightest weight. I love that fight, Cordina and Padley, by the way. It's a brilliant fight.
Nice.
Nice. My lightest weight, I'm going to say it's featherweight, okay? And I'm bringing Bam Bam Rodriguez up to featherweight.
Nice. Nice.
Against Nick Ball.
Nice.
Do you like that fight?
It's a big jump up for Bam Bam, to be fair. It's a great fight. I like the fight. I love the fight.
Because Ball is a heavy featherweight, but he's not a tall featherweight. Great fight in my view.
Yeah.
Go on, your next one then.
Well, we're going to jump up a weight division now.
Who wins that, Bam and Nick, by the way?
I think Nick Ball.
Okay. Cool.
I think it'd be just too big for him.
Okay.
I think Nick Ball. Because stylistically, anyone that goes at Nick Ball, they've got a hard night. They've got a very hard night. And I know Bam is...
I think Bam wins points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, we probably won't see it, but what's your next one?
Right, so my next one is super lightweight.
Okay.
Formerly known as light
140,
welterweight.
yeah.
Yep. And it's Dalton Smith versus Pierce O'Leary.
Oh, I like that. That's a great pick.
Great
I
fight.
didn't even think of that one. That's a great fight. Well
Great
done.
fight.
Winner. Smith points. In a tough fight.
Smith is maybe just more seasoned. I mean, Pierce O'Leary's 16-0, 9 KOs. He's proven himself. It's another step up in
Brilliant
class.
fight.
But Dalton Smith, great fighter himself. I really like that fight.
Apart from this one, the rest of mine are heavy fights. Josh Taylor and Conor Benn at welterweight.
Oh, nice.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I like it. I've actually got Josh Taylor in my running order as well.
Have you now?
Yeah,
Against who?
I've got him in against Jerome Ennis.
Oh, that's a good fight. Yeah, that's
you
a very
know,
good
Josh
fight.
Taylor's a former undisputed
Boots
lightweight
Ennis,
champion, jumping up. Boots Ennis is now the world welterweight champion. It's a great fight, and I think that Taylor deserves that against Ennis as well.
I think we're going to be up there in Glasgow for Josh Taylor and Echo Esserman, by the way. We don't know for certain yet, but we're hoping to be up there. Josh Taylor, if he comes through Echo Esserman, and Conor Benn, if he comes through Chris Eubank Jr., is massive. But who knows what's going to happen? Josh is at welterweight now. He's needed those extra 7 pounds. He was at 10
I like the thought you've put into that, by the way. You've worked that out nicely.
Well, I think... Come on, who wins out of Josh Taylor and Conor Benn at welterweight? I suppose it depends what happens between... Ignoring what happens with Eubank and Benn.
All right, here we go. Josh Taylor's proven at that level.
Undisputed 140.
Yeah, Conor Benn isn't. So you'd have to say Josh Taylor would start favourite.
Okay, who's your next one?
Right, so my next one now is... So I've done 3 now, right?
You've done...
Yeah, I've done 3. You've got to go give me your next one.
Oh, I've got to give mine, okay. I'm going for cruiserweights now.
Here we go.
Now, we've talked about it already tonight, to be honest. Pat Brown and Alois Jr.
I like it. It's a great fight, though.
Oh, it's a
great fight.
It's an absolute barn burner. The problem is Pat Brown's not experienced enough to fight Alois at the moment, but what a fight.
It's a fantastic fight.
Pick a winner.
I'm going to go Pat Brown.
Are you? Bye.
Well, it depends when it happens. I mean, right now it's too soon for him,
6 rounder, 8 rounder, 10 rounder.
It's a tough call at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, Alois Jr. for 4 rounds is going to be a nightmare for anyone, any cruiserweight. Yeah. It's a great fight, by the way. It's a great
horrible
fight.
to talk about Pat Brown potentially being knocked out in his second fight again.
Yeah, it is. But listen,
it ain't going to happen yet.
Yeah, this is all about timing, and we'll have
if they got a million each, they'd do it, though, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, but we'll have that conversation when and if they ever get made. But let's move on.
Your fourth fight of the night.
So I've got 2 heavyweight fights left, 4 and 5. I'm going to go number 4, Johnny Fisher versus Moses Itoma.
Ooh, well, that's a knockout for Moses Itoma in my view. Nothing against Johnny Fisher, but you know Moses Itoma knocks him out. How do you see it?
Yeah, I go for Moses as well. I think that Moses for me is the next heavyweight star. He's the next world heavyweight champion. I'm not sure that Johnny can reach that level.
I hope Big John isn't listening at the moment.
If he's listening, we're in banging trouble,
I know
aren't we?
we're not welcoming his house
banging trouble,
anymore,
mate.
but I wonder if he
Chinese
listens to talk and watches talkSPORT still.
Well, he might be listening to this, mate. There's, the prawn balls and chicken balls, they're out the window, mate. No more of that for us.
I nearly got beaten up for taking the chicken ball the first time. Do you remember? No, I didn't. In fact, it was a bit of fun.
Yeah,
and we wish Johnny well in his fight against Dave Allen on May the 17th.
Of course we do.
And he's courageous for taking the fight a second time. We both thought he lost the first one. Judges had him winning it, but I think he's courageous, trying to set the record straight for everybody, and I hope he makes a ton of money.
But do you like that fight, Johnny Fisher versus Moses Itoma?
I do, but I've got David Adelaide against Johnny Fisher.
Oh, there you go.
What happens in that one? That's a closer fight in my view.
David Adelaide's, again, more seasoned. For me, you got to go David Adelaide.
I think David Adelaide is the favourite, but you cannot write Johnny Fisher off. Look what he did against Dave Allen. He was knocked down, he came back, and he stayed in the fight. So you've got to give him his credit. And my last one, you've probably got the same one because it is a big one. Who you got in your last fight, or the last one?
Well, I
of the
think
night,
it's quite obvious, isn't it? It's quite obvious. AJ versus
Fury.
There we go.
I've got that. And that's the big one, of course.
That's what I've got as well.
Does that card 5v5, just those my 5 or your 5, Fury AJ, Adelaide Fisher, Rodriguez Ball, Josh Taylor, Conor Benn, Pat Brown, Alois Jr. Read your 5 out.
So I've got AJ Fury, Fisher Itoma, Jerona Ennis versus Josh Taylor, Shakur Stevenson versus Anthony Kakachi, Dalton Smith versus Pierce O'Leary.
Oh, I think on yours, I've got Matchroom winning. And on mine, I think Fury beats AJ. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel?
I think AJ beats Fury.
I've got it 3-2 to Queensberry.
What, on my one? I'm
3-2 to Queensberry on my card. Can you work it out quickly enough or not?
I've got 3-2 to Matchroom. 4. No, I haven't actually. I've got 4-1 Matchroom.
We'll reveal Spencer's after the break.
Yeah.
But would either of our cards sell out of Wembley or not?
I think definitely, yeah.
All right,
Without a doubt. Listen, AJ Fury, top of the bill, against a strong undercard, sells out Wembley every day of the week, and we both got AJ Fury top of the bill. But again, it's one of those ones, it could be a whitewash either way, and none of us, we wouldn't know. They're great fights.
They are great fights, and let's hope it happens, and hopefully we've peered into the crystal ball correctly. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Up next, George Galinsky joins us from his in-laws' attic. We'll chuck in a whopping 10 grand in cash, completely tax-free, and put you up for the weekend in a London hotel. All you have to do to get involved is text the word WIN, W-I-N, to 83338 for your chance to win, or you can enter by post. Texts cost £2 plus one standard network rate message. Once again, for your chance to win those tickets, that's the word WIN, W-I-N, to 83338, or you can enter by post. This is a news broadcasting network promotion. Very good luck to you.
18 plus UK excluding Northern Ireland. Enter by text for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on the 7th of April 2025. Or post your name and number to Oasis Competition, PO Box 3190. Colchester CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of April 2025. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Noel gave you a couple of tickets, didn't he?
I'm there, mate. And I'm there August the 2nd.
Yeah, and Liam's given me a couple. Well done, mate.
Yeah.
Taking the wife or not?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. And best of health to your
Lord
wife.
Jordan actually gave me the tickets, actually.
Lord Jordan. What, the Cape Crusader, you mean? The Cape Crusader for boxing. There we go. Look, next weekend, by the way, we are in Manchester, and we are covering Frank Warren's Queensberry heavyweight card, headlined by Joe Joyce versus Filip Hrgović. Hrgović probably number 8 in the world right now. Massive opportunity, Spencer, for Joe Joyce after losses twice to Zhilei Zhang and once to Derek Chisora. Got to win in the middle of that. But it's a massive opportunity for him to get mentioned and noted again in the heavyweight division rather than Dillian Whyte, who he was facing. This is a bigger opportunity.
Absolutely. Listen,
harder opponent, though.
Where Joe Joyce is sat in his career right now, and the age that he is, and the defeats that he's coming off, especially the last one against Derek Chisora, you look at it and you go, this is make or break, baby. He has to win here, and it's a tough night against Filip Hrgović. Yes, he got beat by Daniel Dubois, and he got ripped to pieces, ripped to shreds in that fight as well. His face was a mess. We actually saw him at the airport, didn't we? Afterwards, had a good chat with him. It was a crushing defeat for him, but look what Daniel Dubois has gone on to achieve since then. You look at it and you go, well, actually, was it as bad a defeat as we first thought? He was having his moments in that fight. Tough fight for Joe Joyce.
No, Hrgović could still come back and win a world title.
Absolutely.
But it's a big win, big loss and reward fight for him. If he loses, who knows where he goes, but if he wins, he is back in the reckoning, and he will be considered genuinely back, and he's nearly 40 now. So it's a really tough fight, but it's a really good fight.
crossroads fight for both guys. And, you know, when you get to this stage of your career for both guys, you know, it's a case of, do I stay up in that world class or do I just drop out of the picture totally? And where's my motivation come from if I do? So, fantastic fight. Great show.
It's a great show. We had Delicious Orie on the line earlier on tonight. He's against Milos Veletic at heavyweight. His heavyweight debut as a pro, isn't it? David Adeleye versus Jamie Chikeva. That is a fight I'm looking forward to. Jamie likes to punch people's lights out. David Adeleye is on his way back after defeat to Fabio Wardley, where he's rebuilding himself again. That is a terrific don't blink fight, isn't it?
Fantastic fight. Styles make fights. Both guys will meet, lock horns in the centre of the ring. Do not blink. That one could be over quite quick.
Royston Barney-Smith on the card as well. Mark Chamberlain trying to get back into winning ways after his loss to Josh Padley. You know, the Ramon Musa against Robbie Chapman. There's so many great fights on the card.
It's a fantastic card. Really looking forward to it. That's what we're spoilt with right now. You never used to get cards like this now. You're talking about these. We're getting them week in, week out. Queensbury, Matchroom, delivering, Boxer, putting those shows on. We're very blessed as boxing fans to be getting these sorts of cards. That's a fantastic one. Can't wait, live and exclusive on talkSPORT.
What a weekend we have coming up for you. 2 events on the Friday night. UK versus USA, and you're captaining Team UK against Roy Jones Jr.'s USA. We've got Bare Knuckle, where I'll be with Mike Goldberg doing comms, BKB Extreme, from Myrtle Beach. I've got to go to the beach, I'm afraid. And next Saturday night, this card as well. But let's finish the show, and it's fitting to do so. We lost 2 giants, 2 titans of the sport. One a great heavyweight, and one a great heavyweight journalist. George Foreman passed away this time last week. What a moment for all of us. We all stopped. It was unexpected. We've got shows with him that we've done in the past. I had interviewed him last October on the 50th anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle. He was a very, very special heavyweight, wasn't he, Spencer?
He certainly was. He was a beautiful, humble human being, actually. You know, he talks about the loss to Muhammad Ali, and he thought he was just going to turn up to win the Rumble in the Jungle way back in 1974, and how he just had to turn up to win to get the then considered Muhammad Ali out of there, considered finished at 32 years of age. To get him out there, he thought he'd just turn up, and it didn't go his way. After 3 rounds, he said, I punched myself out, and he took me to a place that I'd never been to before, and it took him the best part of 20 years to regain that title.
But when you say that, he's unique. He's unique as a heavyweight to do that. He's unique as a human being to do that. We haven't seen other people in boxing do that. To become a preacher, to talk about Muhammad Ali being on his screensaver with him standing over him in the Rumble in the Jungle in that 8th round as a humility, as a character, 5 sons named George, The Grill, the biopic on his life that's come out recently, the celebration of all those things. And when you were with him, and I interviewed him many times over the years, you've interviewed him as well, and been with him, he made you feel special.
Absolutely.
He had an ability to make you feel special.
He had the presence to be able to do that. And like, if you look at George Foreman and his career, and you go back to the 70s, like I say there, the Muhammad Ali days, and you look at him, and he was that mean and moody guy that was very, very intimidating, to the guy that we met when I was up in Manchester in the Midland Hotel 2005, Ricky Hatton versus Costas Yu, and I was sitting down there speaking with George Foreman, this big, cuddly teddy bear telling you all these stories. You go, how was that transition made? Like going from one of the most intimidating men on the planet to this lovely guy that sold 100 million plus Foreman grills. Incredible. What a character.
What a character, and what a blessed life he had. And so too did Colin Hart, the great Colin Hart, who never had a mobile phone, who had a byline in the Sun for nearly 60 years, who passed away aged 89 this time a few hours earlier, a week ago. A very, very special man.
And I know that hit you very hard. He was your mentor, and I know how close you was with him, and I know how that affected you, and it's been very, very tough for you. So, you know, I never had the relationship like you did with Colin, but, you know, he was a big part of my recovery coming up to the hospital when, you know, I nearly lost my life way back in 1998, and I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do, you know, in my life, not just in boxing, what I was going to do. But he sort of no qualifications, and he sort of guided me and told me that I've got a lot of, a lot of personality, and I could just go wherever I did. And yeah, lovely human being. But I know, Gareth, how hard it was for you.
Yeah, colleague, friend, but most of all a mentor and like a father figure in boxing. And I miss him so much already. Well, strangely and bizarrely, Spencer and I caught up with Colin a few weeks before his death on our My Life in Boxing series over on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. He told us that he has had no regrets at all.
Colin, final question to you, my friend. Any regrets?
No regrets whatsoever. Given the chance, I'll do it all over again.
And what would an 89-year-old Colin Hart tell that 10-year-old in East London? What advice would he give him today about his life that was ahead of him?
You don't realise how lucky you're going to be.
You don't realise how lucky you're going to be. It's made us all stop and think this week, because two giants of our sport and of the things that we do as broadcasters. He worked on TV and radio for many years as well. He worked on Showtime in the United States. When I know that his wife Cindy and the family have watched that in the last couple of days, and it brought a lot of joy to them. We are in a sport where people die in the ring, people live long lives, people have very celebrated lives. Colin never had a mobile phone, by the way. He always had to ring Cindy to get hold of him or where he was. But he stayed true to the last. And when someone does this, and hopefully we're doing it in many years' time because we have a passion for this, both of those men had a passion for the sports and passed on many things to young people. I think that's so important.
Absolutely. Listen, they leave behind their memory, and they were two huge figures in our sport, and they'll be sorely missed for sure.
They're already sorely missed. It's a sad way to end talkSPORT's Fight Night tonight, remembering the passing of the great George Foreman, two-time heavyweight champion of the world, a great character, and also Colin Hart, one of the great journalists from Fleet Street. He could have written leader columns, he could have done anything. It was brilliant to see both men celebrated all over the country and all over the world in the last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think one of the things that I will miss about Colin Hart is that when he spoke at those press conferences, you knew exactly who it was. The distinctive voice of a truly great man.
Colin Hart and George Foreman going over to greater glory on the other side this week. You've been listening to Fight Night with me and Spencer on talkSPORT.